Welcome back, everyone, to Lesser Known Operators. I'm your host, Nicholas Allen, and my guest today is Walter Hurd. Walter started out his career in 1st Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. He then earned his Green Beret, spent a lot of time in 10th Special Forces Group, manning a dive team and 3 companies, and later commanding 3rd Battalion in that same group. He's the author of Unconventional Warrior and even commanded 3rd Group's Siege of Sodaf in Afghanistan in 2003. But no, we're not going to talk about any of that today. We are going to discuss his influence on the Transition Assistance Program, as he is the National Director for said program. Hopefully we can have him back on to go over some of his time being Ranger in a Green Beret. I'll have links to his socials in the show description. As always, today's episode is brought to you by the Green Beret-owned business Precision Wellness Group and Dr. Taylor Bosley. Precision Wellness Group helps you restore balance, unlock vitality, and fuel your momentum through bioidentical hormone therapy and evidence-based personalized telemedicine. Dr. Taylor Bosley is a board-certified physician, a U.S. Army veteran, and a former Green Beret. So he knows where you've been, where you want to go, and how to get you there. And he's an actual doctor who can prescribe you actual medicine. So if TRT, HRT, hormones, testosterone, peptides is something you've been thinking about for a while now, or just now looking into, look no further than Precision Wellness Group and Dr. Taylor Bosley in Southern Pines, North Carolina, in-person, walk-in, or telemedicine. Today's episode is also brought to you by the Green Beret-owned business Alpha Elite Performance. Get your supplements for the gym. I recommend the Pipe Hitter pre-workout and creatine at alphaeliteperformance.com. Use code LKO15 at checkout to save 15% on your order. I do appreciate you guys. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, pass these episodes along. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Walter Hurd, welcome to Lesser Known Operators, man. Thanks for coming on.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. We had a few things go wrong this morning. Fire alarm. Everybody's okay. The Army's still up and working, I assume, then?
We're still driving on. We had a fire alert here in my building at Fort Knox, so that put the whole thing about an hour or so behind us. But in fact, the building did not burn down, and we're all good to go back to work.
Okay, good. That's good. And everybody's back. Yeah, I should have known that. And that's my second time. When I had the first group sergeant major on, he wasn't able to record from his office, and it just didn't click when you had sent me from your email that you're probably trying to go from a military computer. So now I got it in my head. Chrome, they won't run Chrome, and this operating system I use only runs off of Chrome, and you can't download it, and you'd have to get the IT wizards in there to wave their magic wand. So I apologize for that, but now I do have that in my memory, and I'll know that for the future for the next people. But I'm glad to have you. I appreciate you reaching out to me. How did you hear about the show?
You know, I like a lot of people probably just kind of stumbled across it on the internet. And I do a lot of strategic communication for my actual job here as the Transition Assistance Program guy. And I stumbled across yours and I said, hey, lesser known operators. I think that sounds like me. I spent, 25 years as an operator. And so I listened to a couple of things and reached out to you and appreciate the call back.
Yeah, absolutely. What does transition sidebar though, it always blows me away when people find my stuff and they're like, oh, I found you on this, or I found you over here, and that's so crazy to me also, because I'm building this from nothing, and it makes me so happy when people see my stuff and then they reach out to me and they want to talk to me. So that I appreciate. But what does National Director of Transition Assistance Program mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. So every year, about 100,000 soldiers take off the uniform and go back to the civilian sector from which we all came. You did it, I did it. Every year, 100,000. About 2/3, 3/4 of those are regular Army troops. The remaining third quarter are Guard and Reserve who are getting demobilized. So as part of that preparation to send us home or wherever, the Army has a Transition Assistance Program, TAP. that really help soldiers, everything from resumes and budgets and MOS crosswalk and a myriad of tasks. So we've got, as a lot of most of the soldiers know, TAP centers at every location, and we try to engage the soldiers to really answer the $1 million questions, which is 3 questions: where do you want to go? What do you want to do? How much money do you need to make? And I tell people that TAP is kind of like PT, and all the operators will understand that. And that is, you don't wait until a week before your PT test and try to do push-ups for 40 hours and get in shape, right? You do it a few minutes every day for a year, and then you're ready to go. And thinking about your next life is the same thing. You can't go to a TAP class fat, dumb, and happy on Monday and expect to be ready to go on Friday.
No, that's a bad plan for anybody listening at home. So I assume this is the same thing as I wrote down here SFL TAP is what they
Yeah.
were calling it when I had to
Yeah,
go
we
through it
changed
in
the names a little bit just to
2018.
confuse people, but it's the same basic concept. Now, TAP is very heavily congressionally mandated, supervised, et cetera. So we periodically get new laws and new policies that we have to input. But as the national director, I'm here at Fort Knox, Kentucky, in Human Resources Command. And then, of course, we have TAP centers all over the world.
So that's disturbing to me always when you say heavily congressionally involved. Is that people that don't know what they're talking about, just coming up with the good idea fairy and always changing things and asking questions, or is it constructively helping?
That's a great question. And I'll tell you, like anything to do with any level of government at any echelon, there's a fair amount of good idea fairy. I will tell you, though, I had the opportunity 10 years ago to go to Congress and talk to them. And I've been up there several times. And they said, what do we need in TAP? And I said, here's what you need in TAP. You need people to start early. They can't start a month out. They got to start it early, number one. And number two, it needs to be customized so that you get what you need and the other guy gets what they need and somebody else gets what they need. So we're moving in that direction, and I think that's a great thing. And what happens if it's got Congress behind it, then that means the services kind of have to pay for it. And the commanders and the soldiers, everybody kind of has to do it because it gets reported to Congress. So it is a mixed blessing in that we get a lot of questions, but it's also good that we have that impetus behind us, so that miscellaneous leaders at various echelons can't just blow it off. If they do, then at least their report says that.
I got to assume congressmen and women are the same as everybody else. They don't do anything unless they have to or want to. So why are they so involved in the program?
Yeah, that's a good question. A couple reasons. One, and I don't mean to be derogative, but it's kind of apple pie. I mean, every elected official wants to support veterans, right? Who can say that's bad? And that support means preparing them for this huge transition. You certainly know about it. Many of your viewers know about it. It's hard to wrap your head around it. So those are a couple reasons. And I'll tell you a third reason: industry is desperate for human talent. Every industry, construction, manufacturing, distribution, agriculture, you name it, they all need smart, capable, physically fit people who are going to show up and do a job. And as kind of a side effect of this thing we call freedom and democracy, the Army produces about 100,000 people every year, just like that, to go back home and help industry. So industry wants it. Soldiers, veterans, you and me basically want to be set up for success so that we can go do whatever it is we want to do. And to do that, you got to start this thinking early.
When did that start? Because everything in the military and everything in government, right? Is there's the overcorrection this way and overcorrection this way. There's nothing ever in the middle. So it had to be a shocking lack of a program before to where now the Congress is involved and actually caring, and
Yeah,
it'll become too overbearing eventually, and then it'll swing back the other way as people change out. But when did this all originate from?
no, that's a great question. So obviously, the Army for 250 years has been transitioning people out of the Army, right? Washington did it, demobilization. At the end of World War II, my father came home and they said, "Here's your ticket home. Thank you very much for your service. Oh, by the way, you get the GI Bill. Move out." Uh, in 1991, when the Iron Curtain fell and the Soviet Union distributed, uh, Congress tasked the services to come up with with some kind of transition assistance program. We first called it ACAP. Some of your old folks may remember that. Um, ACAP was basically a voluntary service or voluntary program or process from about 91 to 11. So we'll call that 20 years. When I retired, I went through ACAP. It was voluntary, meaning everybody had to kind of go to the introduction brief, and that was it. And as you would expect, some people did a lot of it, and some people didn't do any of it. When I retired, I did everything I could get my hands on because I was kind of scared. What are you going to do, when you're not in uniform? In 2011, Congress passed a law to make all the ACAP stuff mandatory. So it went from voluntary to mandatory. And then about 5 or 6 years after that, uh, the Army talked them into kind of uh, uh, making it more gradual for medium, low, and high risk based on an assessment. So it is maturing and changing. It's certainly not perfect by any stretch. But we found that when it was voluntary, those who really needed it, a lot of times didn't go. When it was mandatory, those who didn't really need it wasted a lot of time and energy and resources. So we're trying to find that happy medium. I don't claim to be there. We're kind of getting there though.
Yeah, the people who need it the most, they're probably the ones that are working the hardest at their jobs or the mission essential, and they uh, or being kept on and working up until the last moment, and then it's
Well,
over, and then oh shit, now I got to walk out the door, and I don't have anything set up. So
you're right. I'll tell you, uh, years ago, one of my soldiers was retiring, 20 years, awesome soldier, airborne ranger, Green Beret, master sergeant. I'd known him for a couple of tours because, as you know, in SF, we stay typically in the same group for tour after tour. And when I'm pinning his medal on his uniform, that's the first time I said, "So what are your plans?" And his answer was, "Gee, I don't know. I really haven't thought about it." My first response, just as a human, was to grab his uniform and say, "Hey, knucklehead, what have you been thinking about for the last 20 years? You knew today was coming." And then I realized, you know what? As his commander, I probably should have asked him that 6 months ago. That would have been the time to have this discussion, not when he's marching out of the door, with this medal on his chest. So, so we kind of got off track, but that's really the point of what we're trying to do in this program is to get leaders involved, get soldiers involved. You're right. There's still a lot of folks that work up until midnight the day before, and then they wake up and say, "What the heck? What do I do?" Um, so with a little, congressional impetus and command reporting and all that kind of stuff, we're trying to get everybody to go early. Here's a trivia question for you, Nick, and for your readers. One of the things we track is unemployment. Okay, how many people, when they get out of the Army, file for unemployment? And incidentally, that number's gone way down, like tenfold down in the last decade. So think of all the MOSs. I think there's 150 MOSs or something like that. And rank order them in your brain, the most unemployed down to the least unemployed. So what would you think? This will be a test question for you. You don't normally have people ask you questions on this thing, but we'll ask you, what do you think the most unemployed groups of MOSs, you don't need a list of specific ones, but kind of the combat arms and combat support or combat service support, I know they've changed names. What do you think are more likely to be unemployed soon after they transition?
special operations and combat arms for
Okay.
sure.
So you answered just like 99% of the people. And just like 99% of people, that's actually incorrect. Combat arms officers or soldiers, excuse me, of all rank are employed at a much higher than average. They're like the most employed groups of soldiers. The least employed groups of soldiers are what we used to call combat service support, HR guys, truck drivers, some of the medical, etc. Those are the most unemployed. So we try to pull the string and figure out why that is, and then to address those who are most at risk. That's the whole point of TAP, is to address the most at risk soldier. If you're I witnessed, I sat in a TAP class when I first got this job, and I was sitting between a truck driver and an anesthesiologist. So I talked to both of them during the break, and what are you guys going to do? Truck driver says, "Well, I'm going home, live in mom's house. I don't really know what I'm going to do." The doctor said, "Well, I've already bought into a practice. I'm going to double my salary, and I'm pretty much, I'm good to go." So at that point, as a director, I said, "Okay, well, I want to focus my resources on this guy, this young person. The doctors, they're good to go. I'm not worried too much. We'll do some mandatory stuff, but you're pretty much good to go." So that's really the at-risk methodology that we look at with this assessment.
So that's, as you said, you're pinning the medal on your soldier's chest there at the retirement, and what are you going to do, right? Part of that is the Army's not a person. You're a person, and you can care, but the position can't really care because you have a billet to fill and a job to do, and a commander that you have to uh, fill his intent, right? And it's well and good to have these programs, but if the military isn't giving you people to replace these people, and you still have a mission to do, well, that comes first. And a lot of these things go to the wayside. So, what's being done to counteract that? Because as well as I do, NTC will the guy or the 82nd or 101st, when they take a brigade into the box, it don't matter if you're on profile, if you're ACAPing, if you're clearing or whatever. If you're within their window, you're going. It doesn't matter one little bit. That commander doesn't give a shit because they gotta meet their commander's intent.
Yeah. And, frankly, that's the right answer. We get paid to fight and win America's wars. That's why we're
Yeah.
here. That's why the taxpayer pays us. That's why the Constitution stood us up, to fight and win America's wars. Um, uh, Also, fact number one in this discussion is that everybody transitions. Everybody. Now, you may do it after 3 years as an E4. You may do it after, 30 years after as an E9. I don't know, but everybody, 100%, at some point takes off, that uniform and puts on some version of this uniform. So with this start early thing, really what we're trying to do is give the soldier and the leaders time to schedule around an NTC rotation or around a big field exercise or around whatever, and start this thing early. If you add up all the TAP stuff, all of it, it takes about a week and a half. So again, do a day every month or two, and you can spread it out, just like, I don't know, your dental checklist and all that. If you add up all your dental checks for a couple of years, it's only a half day, maybe a day, but you do one every quarter or 6 months or so that you've got good care throughout.
Hmm. All right, so that's on the job side of things, but everybody, especially on the enlisted side, every buddy I've had on this show on the enlisted side has gone into a deep depression after they get out, and alcohol has taken its place. And you talk about at risk, man. I've talked to several people on here. Like it seems like there is literally nothing we can do in some of these cases, especially on the suicide side of things. Guys, it just keeps happening, and in special operations the most. And the first time we hear about it is at their or when we get the notice to go to their funeral and things like that. So, what are you seeing, or the evolution of what's changing on the mental health side? Because whatever we've been doing is not working. And how much is that an issue at your level?
Yeah. No, that's a huge issue, of course. And everybody, heck, I don't know, for 250 years probably, has gone around this challenge of how do I re-image myself from what I did in uniform to what I'm doing after the uniform, right? Again, 3 years or 30 years. That's a big transition for me. I'm sure it was for you, because it's really a different definition of yourself. And for soft guys who work so hard to get there, right? All the quitters already quit. If you're in group or the regiment or something like that, man, that is your life. That's not what you do. That's who you are. So all of a sudden, that's who you are, and then one day, that's not who you are, and you got to figure out who you are. So this sounds corny, and I don't mean to make it simplistic, but the key is to wrap your head around that over a long time. If you just wake up and all of a sudden you don't put on uniform, you're hosed. But if you start thinking a year or two or 20 out, you know what? My long-term goal is to do something, small business, teach college, white picket fence, I don't know, whatever it is. And that's the new me. That transition is simpler. So what we see is people who don't have, it's like anything else in life, right? If you don't have your eye on the long target, then you get tripped up. And to have your eye on that long target, not necessarily today's target, but the long target. So this going early thing and having those conversations, just imagine, what if I, as the commander, had asked my soldier a year out, hey, Sergeant, I'm not going to list his name, but we'll say Sergeant Jones, you're retiring a year from now, right? I just got the papers. You're retiring in 12 months. What are you going to do? Well, sir, I don't know. I'm thinking maybe I'll go home. Maybe I'll get a job. I don't know. I said, okay. Well, I want you to think about that. I want you to talk to your family about that. And I want you to come see me in a month and just tell me, what are you going to do? So a month later, he says, well, I think I'm going to go back to South Carolina. And I said, okay, all right, that's progress. So, and my point is, what if I just had that conversation time and time again? Or if it's team sergeant or first sergeant or whomever, so that it was something to think about, as opposed to, hey, get your butt on the airplane, we're rolling, let's go, move out. And then on the last day, when you pin the medal, saying, hey, what are your plans? Again, it's kind of like PT. You don't wait until PT test and say, hey, you slob, how come you can't do any push-ups? Well, why didn't you ask me
Yeah.
that a year ago? Maybe I would have done something.
You should always be able to do push-ups. Come on, guys. I don't know, 42. Uh, I had a conversation with the first group CSM a month and a half ago now, and really cool experience for me. But some other things that I've thought about afterwards, especially with instituting change. So we ramp up through the global war on terror, right? And now a group CSM came in at the beginning. Well, all of his friends, all of his peers, everybody that he knew is on the civilian side, right? Because there's only one. You only make it to the one spot, and then you got a couple of your buddies there over at other spots, but you won't really have. So all of your buddies from your group are gone, and they're out, and they're feeding you information. And if you really care, if you care about that for the next guys, the ones you're in charge of now, the natural evolution is this glide path to fixing these sorts of things. So we had this huge spike, and now we've got to spend all this time fixing it. And lessons learned. I mean, we don't learn lessons. Otherwise, if we did, we wouldn't have a department that has to keep all the records of it so we can go check in on it, because we don't learn anything because we got too much shit going on. So over at first, they got Tory platoon, which is great. Like, they pull the guys out a year, and that's your place of duty. And that works for SOF, but the regular Army has its challenges with that too, with manning and things. And there's some different levels of seniority and things that are different mission. But, how is, I think, and these things fit in, like sitting down and talking to people and hearing, the actual issues and the progression. It's moving towards this, and getting people to listen to it early in their career and go, just a little idea, and have it always there. Because I did not, when I was in, the day I got in, the day of the middle of being in my service, and the last day, I did not care one bit about civilian life at all. And I didn't think about it. I didn't want to go do it. I wanted to be where I was at. And you'll have people like that no matter what. no matter what. But if you can get people, it'll spread organically, I guess, as well. But it's on the people that are still in and that continue to serve after their uniform to listen to the people that are out that are having a rough time. Like I sit down here and interview people and they're having a rough time, or they've come out of it. And the only way for people, and for many years, nobody said anything. Like nobody even said, "Hey, I'm struggling," or "I'm going through a hard time." And as I said, the first time you hear about them going through rough times when you get a notice that they've killed themselves, another one of your buddies that you went to combat with has offed themselves, and that's pretty brutal too. So I think, as benign a topic as it is, as transition assistance program, it's like one of those things. And as you said, if you're not thinking about it, it's going to sneak up on you. 20 years goes by in about 45 seconds. I'm pretty sure that
Yeah.
you can attest to that.
Yeah. No, you've made about 20 really good points there, Nick. Good stuff. Here's a couple of truisms I'll throw out there from my personal experience, and you can, I think, see them. You can certainly read them in history, and that is everybody who deploys either on a training event or going to war or something, at some point, turns to their buddy in the foxhole and says, "Hey, what are you going to do when we get home? What are you doing? What are you going to do when this is all over?" And that conversation, that simple conversation, what are you going to do when this is all over? Either this deployment or this war or this exercise or something is the conversation that everybody needs to have. Leaders need to ask their soldiers. And you're right, some hard-headed soldiers will just never accept the fact that at some point it's going to be over. But at some point it's going to be over. I did all the cool stuff, and man, I put body and spirit into that because you have to make it, right? To clear all those hurdles, you got to be all in. And when you're leading soldiers, you got to be all in. But you also have to realize that there's something, I'm all in on the 75-meter target, but I've got to look at the 300-meter target because it's coming, right? So you got to pay attention. Um, the question that every kid gets asked, right? And you got asked when you were a little kid in fifth grade, and so did I. What do you want to be when you grow up? And it changed. Of course, you change, right? I wanted to be a cowboy, and then a professional football player, and then a soldier, and then a Green Beret. And that was all awesome. But there's always, the next thing in most cases. So uh, that conversation, both for the individual psychological health as well as the organizational health, as well, frankly, as the economy of our nation. And here's something: the all-volunteer Army depends on society to support the next generation. The next generation, the best recruiter for the next generation is the previous generation. Who wants to join the Army if all the Army people they know are living under a bridge, with the "Feed Me" sign? Nobody does. So it's just so important, and that's why I'm excited to have gotten this job, and it's an absolute blessing, to be honest with you, because when I retired, just like a lot of guys, retirees or even ETSing, particularly soft soldiers, I was pretty much at the top of my game. I mean, I've been working on this job for 25 years or 24. I had it. I was rocking. I knew exactly what I was doing in uniform. Been doing it my whole life. Had all the merit badges, etc. And then all of a sudden, I didn't. I was just another guy. Luckily, in my case, I've been kind of thinking about that for 20 years, and I knew how to define myself. Still had to look for a job and pay the bills and all that stuff. Uh, but the identity, I had a new identity to which to jump, if that makes sense. Um, and that is so important. You don't want to be just a guy who used to be in the Army. I mean, that's fine. God bless you. I'm a guy who used to be in the Army, but hopefully, I've got this other identity, and you've got this other identity. In your case, you're a strategic communicator and a podcaster and a supporter of veterans, as opposed to this guy who used to be in the Army. Um, and you can look, and if you'll see just walking down the street how people identify themselves and define themselves, and that's the key, and that takes time and a lot of hard thinking, soul searching, communication, all the stuff that sometimes we don't like to do. We just like to shoot at a 25-meter target right in front of us. But you got to look long term.
Yeah. I think one of the most destructive aspects of it is people join the military and they find that sense of purpose and a life they actually like, whether they say they do or not. Maybe
Yeah.
it's consciously or subconsciously. They're getting away from a hometown they don't like, or a family situation, or a bad relationship, or they just ruin their life. They're like, I need a fresh start, and they get in good order, discipline, and then it gets all taken away. And they go, well, I don't want to go back to that. That's even more depressing. And I'm got to get over that. That's like a death in the family almost.
Hmm.
You're dying when you get
Hmm.
out as a person, and your funeral is walking out the front door, and you got to go back to that hometown and things like that. And that's even harder to combat because the military does attract people um, from not ideal situations. If people were in an ideal situation, generally they're going to stay in that ideal situation. They don't make a change. People make a change, and this isn't all the time, but people will make a change when things get so bad that they need to make that change. They have to or they want to. And that's something you have to combat as well. But how about that's from the soldier side of getting the thoughts in their head. What about from the commanders and the sergeant major side, the senior leaders with these programs, getting them to buy in and get away from, well, I got this to do, but I also need to take care of these people. Then you got that human and then the soldier interaction that are going to fight each other. How are you getting buy-in from the senior leadership?
Yeah, that's a good point. And there's always that yin and yang tug of war. I got stuff to do, got to be the motor pool, NTC, et cetera, et cetera. But I got to take care of Joe because Joe's a good guy. And oh, by the way, I'm going to be Joe one of these days. So and that is logical from an economic and recruiting and all those perspectives. So uh, we have a very deliberate strategic communication plan, talking to commanders uh, through every mode you can imagine, podcasts and Facebook, LinkedIn, regulations, commanders, updates. Uh, my trips to Capitol Hill and the Pentagon uh, to get commanders buy-in, and lo and behold, and it's a hard process because again we get paid. The Army exists to fight and win America's wars, as it should be. That's number one. Everything else is number two or lower. Um, But at the senior Army leaders, the Chief of Staff of the Army requests and gets a report every quarter, which means all the ACOM commanders like USASOC and FORCECOM and TRADOC and MedCom and all those guys submit that report on how their soldiers did on transition, how many people started on time and did all their stuff, et cetera, with a little narrative. Here's what we did bad last quarter, and here's what we're going to do better next quarter. So that takes a long time to turn that ship, right? To turn that battleship. Um, but what I do is try to get leader involvement, and it's pretty easy sell. I mean, everybody knows if you think about it, and if you kind of get out of the 25-meter target zone, you know that the Army's about people, and you know that taking care of people is good, and you know that we're all going back home, and we need to be successful. Um, you may or may not know, Nick, that Army veterans are more successful than non-veterans in pretty much economic, money, house ownership, college graduation, volunteer work, all that good stuff. And I'm sure you know that 3/4 of the American population, between about 18 and 24, something like that, can't even join the Army. We won't take them. So I'll take a little bit of umbrage with your comment that uh, only the more desperate folks join the Army. I think that's not true.
No,
Now,
no, I didn't
granted,
say not I say, in our community, 100%, we attract a person that is coming from a broken home and has some sort of things. That just is a lot of guys are coming from those things, special operations, people that want to win, that want to overcome these things that have happened to them. And that just depends on your unit. But a lot of people will join the military like, I want to get away from this and things like that. I'm not saying always, but I talk to special operations veterans, and I get a significant number of guys coming from bad situations and bad home lives and things that are terrible that happen to them. So, and they want to overcome that. So,
And certainly we give them a great opportunity to do that because it's, it's pretty simple. You either cut it or you don't, right? You either run fast enough or
yeah.
shoot straight enough or whatever the standard is, do enough crossovers, all the above. And if you make it, there's good stuff ahead of you. So it's a good opportunity. And it always has been, I guess, for a quarter of a millennium, a good opportunity. Wherever you start off in life, you can join the Army. And if you work hard and do what you're supposed to, you can end up better than where you started. And I know, lots of soldiers who came in, like you said, with rough situations, rough, but they worked their butt off and did what they're supposed to. And, now they're having a positive impact. So that's awesome. Incidentally, I got to tell you, I had the opportunity this summer, 4th of July weekend, to go to Mount Vernon, George Washington's home, for the 250th birthday, or not birthday, the 250th day of his commission as the commander in chief in the Army, of our Army, of course, which was 250 years ago. It was awesome. And the audience, who were all civilians, I mean, I was just talking to moms and dads and kids and stuff, but they were really excited and have a great, I'll say, respect for our Army. Granted, that was Mount Vernon on our 250th birthday, but it was pretty exciting.
Yeah. There's nobody going to show up that's, against it. It's going to be a lot of people that want to be there because it's out of the way. Mount Vernon's kind of out of the way too, isn't it? I think I've been there.
Well,
It's right there on the water, isn't it?
it's right there on the Potomac. If
Yeah.
you're in a boat, it's probably 5 miles to the Washington Monument and the mall in Washington D.C. and all that stuff. But it was pretty fun. I got to ride a horse. I had a colonial uniform on, and I gave classes to kids all day about how to change a saddle and do that stuff. So it was really fun.
Yeah, there's all kinds of and weird taskings in the military too. Some soldiers are like, I can't believe I have to go do this, and you're like, man, this is awesome. I get to go do this. So
Yeah, well,
perspectives on that. That's
it was
fun.
so awesome. I paid for it myself. I took leave and did it myself. It wasn't a tasking. I got the opportunity
Okay, cool.
to, a friend called and said, "Hey, do you want to represent the Colonial Army at Mount Vernon for Washington's 250th Commissioning Day?" I said, "Absolutely, sign me up." It was fun.
As a soldier, I'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. But now as a civilian, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds kind of fun. Yeah, I want to go do that.
So, I tell you what, and you talked about this. I've heard a lot of soldiers. I've said it myself. You have too. Complain about, man, I hate doing this. This stinks. Blah blah blah. But as I look at veterans and I interact, and you certainly do too, a lot of people didn't really like the Army, but not many people 10 years later, 20 years later, regret joining the Army. I've had several people say, I didn't like it. I hated it. They're yelling at me. I had to get up early. But now I'm really glad I did, they say in hindsight. And I think that says a lot just about the maturation process of, individuals.
You will hate it more than you'll love it, but you're not going to regret it unless something really adverse happens to you and you're like, my life would have been better off. That's extenuating. But the majority of people, you get your veteran status, and it's not the secret handshake, but it's the overt handshake of like, yep, you're in the club.
Yeah. Yeah.
And social media, the main way we consume information now these days, still and it's not being pushed, but there's an underlying message that veterans have something wrong with them. They're broken. There's this need to be fixed. And I think it comes from the need, and this is not against nonprofits, the need for so many nonprofits to fix issues that the VA or the healthcare system just hasn't caught up to yet. And because people see, well, they're like, why do we need all this stuff? They just assume that the veteran population is messed up and there's something that's wrong. When no, this is fixing something that the government's not taking care of. And I'm not going to ask you to like speak against your position you're in, but there's a hole in the market, and then these nonprofits are filling that need until science or the regulation can catch up. And we're fighting against that also, because you said, veterans are not broken. They get out and they work hard too. They want to keep winning after they recover from getting out. But we have to fight against that as well. Is like this narrative I don't think is being pushed, but with the way we get information, it's a perception that is reality right now in the civilian world.
Yeah, that's a great point. I equate social media for old guys like me. It's almost like the graffiti on the side of the bathroom wall. Anybody can write whatever they want to. A lot of it's garbage. Just kind of take it with a grain of salt. But it is out there. People are reading it. I think since 9/11, my numbers are off. Something like 30 or 40,000 nonprofits to help veterans have come into existence. Well, just think about that, man. That's mind-boggling. Every small town's got something. Of course, big national, international things. Um, some of those were to fill a void. I got it, uh, and that's legit. And some of them, frankly, were to kind of create a need and then jump in and fill that need, if that makes sense. Um, and I've had countless civilians, and you probably have too, who don't know anybody in the Army and never met anybody in the Army. And the assumption was that you must be some kind of, either homeless guy or somebody with major issues, as opposed to just a regular Joe who's working hard to pay the bills and, take care of the kids and family and that kind of stuff. There are certainly people who need help. Don't get me wrong. God bless them. And I have, and we all have at some point. We all will, by the way, at some point. But I think by and large, uh, pretty handy crowd. I would tell you. And my time in the regiment, I started off in the Ranger Battalion, First Ranger Battalion, and then transitioned to SF, and did most of my time in 10th Group, and then later in 3rd Group. Uh, but it was that quality of people that kept me there. I'll tell you one quick little vignette. Like a lot of young lieutenants out of ROTC, I went to college, took ROTC, got commissioned. I had a 3-year requirement, right? 3 years after I was commissioned, I found myself in Charlie Company, 1st Ranger Battalion on the Honduran-Nicaraguan border, deep in the jungle. And I looked around our patrol base with the company commander and all, platoons from 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, all the way around. And it hit me. I said, this is like a superstar team here. These are pretty good guys, even though it was stinking hot, my back hurt, my feet had blisters, and hungry, all that stuff. But it hit me that this is a championship team. I want to stay on this team a little bit longer. And obviously I did. My plan was to get out of the Army after 3 years and teach high school history and coach football or something like that. But again, once I realized that this was an all-star team and I was on it, I really enjoyed it. So that's off the topic, but um, I think that idea of being on a team that really resonates.
Absolutely. And one little thought. What another thing that's great about the show is I just get to throw stuff out, and then it doesn't sound right the first time or the second time, but then I start working it and I'm like, oh, here we got an idea. It's like I equate it to stand-up comedy. I'm not funny, but with this, I can work these ideas
Yeah,
into little thoughts and everything. And I talk to more people with nonprofits. I mean, I loosely work with several nonprofits, and it's like more and more all the time, to the point where I'm about to create my own position as that I'm just an ambassador for special operations. And I will work with anybody as long as I think they're helping my friends and things like that. Um, it's a new thing. I'm going to create it. I'm going to be a one person employee, just like I am here at Lesser Known Operators. But the team, no, not exclusive to special operations. I mean, there's no place in the military where you don't have a little team. You got a command team, you got a fire team, you got a squad, you got an ODA, you got your team leader, you got squad leader, platoon sergeant, whatever. Everything's a team. And then you get out and you don't have a team. And the greatest thing about these nonprofits and these things is you get some senior leader that starts up, and they don't have to be a master sergeant. They could be a staff sergeant or just, anything. And they had that at one time where they were in charge of a team or they were part of a team, and they start making their own new one. And they start making a new one. Oh, we race cars. Oh, we're on bikes. Oh, we do action sports. And then they get these people around them and they just recreate that on the civilian side. And I think that's the coolest part of these nonprofits, because people will look at them and go, oh, there's too much. There's too many of these things, and there's people are asking for money. And I go, well, let's look a little deeper here. Let's go another, well, maybe the nonprofits, maybe that's not, they'll help maybe one or two people, three people, right, from the outside. But look, there's like 15 people there that are all working together, putting these events on and getting together. Like, there's 15 people they're helping right there, and they work for the thing, and they're bringing more people on. Like, that's benefit there. Look at that side of things too. So I try to get people to look at both sides of the things. Like, yeah, they're trying to get people over here, but it's kind of for them as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. Uh, that you brought up, and I haven't looked at it that way. You've got the output, and then you've got the process itself, and that process involves and heals and helps people. We do a lot of surveys, of course, and collect data. Intel drives operations on the battlefield, and it drives it here in this program as well. And what we found is that the two things that soldiers miss more than anything, whether young soldiers, old soldiers, you name the MOS, but it's really a sense of purpose and the team. In the Army, no matter what you're doing, Green Beret on a dive team or driving a truck in the Corps headquarters, you got a purpose, right? I'm feeding the soldiers. I'm defending the team. I'm defending democracy. I'm getting back for 9/11, whatever. But you got an important purpose. And then, as you said, you've got your teammates around you, and everybody's on board, same purpose, same focus. And when you get out, it's really hard to find it. It's not impossible. You got to look for it. You got to realize that's the thing. It's not just the job that's going to pay the bills. What's the job that's going to give me purpose? And that's why I'm so fortunate and blessed to have stumbled into this job, because it's important taking care of soldiers. That's kind of the same thing I did as an Army leader. That's one of the things you do. It's not just mission, mission, mission. You got to take care of people as well. A buddy of mine, another SF guy, summed it up brilliantly, as most SF guys do. He said, everybody's got to have a thing. You got to have a thing. Doesn't matter what your thing is, but you got to have a thing, something you're passionate about. Maybe it's PT, maybe it's work, maybe it's family. I don't know, but you got to have a thing. And if your only thing is being in the Army, knowing that thing is going to eventually be gone, you got to get another thing. You got to have something. So that's the really hard part about transitioning. I'll never forget when I got my DD 214, having done all this cool stuff in the Army, and I was just giving up command. I gave up 06 command and then got my medal the same day. And then I signed my 214. I asked the young, clerk, I said, okay, what's next? And he just looked up and said, you're done. I'm like, whoa, what do you mean I'm done? There's not some like, nope, you're done. Next. And I went home, and I never forget, when I took off my beret, it just hit me. I'm never putting this thing back on. And my uniform and the whole, all the stuff, right? The accoutrements. And luckily, I think I'd kind of thought about that and had my thing set. But if you don't, man, if you're just flat footed, that's going to hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. It does hurt. It's going to hurt if you're prepared
That's
as
true.
well. So it's just going to hurt. It's going to hurt less. That's why we do pre-jump and all those other things, so you can learn
That's
to
right.
fall
Yeah.
uh, more gracefully, I think it is.
Yeah.
It's going to
It's still
hurt,
going to,
soldier, but you're just going to hurt less.
yeah, even good PLF hurts. That's a good point.
we've said from the soldier level, we got the command level, we got congressional, right? And so you're big on collecting information, you said, and that's data driven organization, right? So how often is somebody going and sitting in these transition assistance program briefings or surveying the soldiers that are leaving, asking, was your command good with sending you to this? Like anonymous things and getting actual information about what is being done at the soldier level.
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So like everybody else, we have a bunch of surveys. Um, After the fact, we have three. We have kind of a before, during, and after. So before, questions like where do you want to go, what do you want to do. During, questions like is instruction, is it work? Is it good? Are you learning something? Are you wasting your time? And then after, did it meet your needs? Uh, we got a whole bunch of people who fill out the before and during surveys, and frankly, it's hard to get the after surveys because after you're done, you know, you're back home in Fort Living Room someplace, and you may or may not do a survey. Typically, people who do surveys, and you know this just from your own personal life, you're either really ticked off because it was so screwed up, I hate everybody, or I won the lottery and I'm going to tell everybody how great it was, or something like that. So we get a lot of extremes on that post survey. Um, so we have from my office and from the installation, they do command inspection programs. You're familiar with that. Although I got to tell you, we haven't done as many as we used to because of funding. We're really constricted on how much visiting we can do to go out and inspect the tap centers at various installations. So the local leaders can and hopefully do, but that's a challenge. That's a hard thing to do, to get down and really get your finger on the pulse, as it were. When I was in uniform, I'd do battlefield circulations and skip a couple of echelons and go down to the ODA and see what's really going on. And that was valuable. And it's hard to do in this environment.
Yeah, Sergeant Major said, it's tough to get the information from the guys because who wants the group sergeant major or the group commander in their team room as well? Also, what information are you getting? And not to be the good idea fairy here, but as you were talking, because you said they handed me my DD 214, and I said, well, what's next? And then you said we can't get people to fill out the after surveys. I don't know. Hand them the after survey when you hand them the DD 214 and say, drop it in the box on your way out.
Yeah,
That's the good idea fairy
that's a
rearing
good
its
one.
head right there.
That's a good one.
Hey, just drop it in the box because that guy. But I know that guy's busy. He's got lunch at 9:30, and he's got to come back in at 4:30 to close up shop. He's real busy with what he's doing. He spelled my did he spell my name wrong? No, he got my rank wrong, and then he didn't want to fix it. That was it. And he's like, I said, that's I'm a sergeant first class. And he's like, it'll be fine. I said, no, it's not fine. Like, I'm gonna hang this in my house. Give me the correct paperwork. Well, it's gonna be an hour. Yeah, I can wait. I got like 45 years to wait here, man. I'll take my time. Give me my piece of paper. So no, that's good. It's always tough. Surveys are, you never know what kind of information you're going to get and that, but if you're not getting it right away, people are going to forget and they're not going to go to it. Even when I want to leave a good review somewhere, I don't do it. Like, and that's you want to support somebody. I don't go do it because I got other shit going on, but it's got to be hard for you guys as well. So how about from, your transition on the side of things, and we'll wrap things up, but, you know, 30 years, pretty committed. And now you roll into helping people in their transition. Is this something that just came up, or you saw that and went, ooh, I'd like to do that? I saw some things when I was in command that I would like to make an impact on the force still going forward.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll tell you, I got lucky. Just like my time in uniform, it was more luck than skill. Um, and I spent 24 years on active duty. Was able to combine my passion and my profession. Absolute blessing. That's what I prepared for my entire childhood. I didn't realize that, um, but it was all the football and Boy Scouts and campouts and all that kind of stuff culminated, at Fort Benning and Fort Bragg, and got me into the end zone. Uh, so I talked about soldiers need to kind of define who they are going to be when they take the uniform off, right? Because at some point, if I'm a soldier, what am I when I'm not a soldier? I had defined that. Uh, my wife and I, 39 years, by the way, are high school sweethearts. So we both grew up
Congratulations.
in the same high school, of course, in Louisville, Kentucky. Uh, got a family farm up there, so we both knew when whenever retirement came, we were going to go back there and live on the farm and do family stuff. So that was kind of the new me. I went from, steely eyed killer, uh, green beret type to country gentleman type. So that was the new me. About the same time, Human Resources Command moved from Washington D.C. to Fort Knox, Kentucky, which is about, I think, 50 miles from home in my case. So I make that commute. So I saw the job open up. And I said, yeah, ACAP. I remember that. I think that'd be pretty good. And I applied for it. I tell people uh, all I really wanted to do when I retire was drive the zero turn mower around because those were really cool. But I didn't have a license. So they put me in charge of this program instead. But as I got here, I really applied just like Army stuff. Identify the end state, get the intent, get the culture across, fight for the resources, and then allocate those resources in accordance with the priority. The priority is helping the young at-risk soldier. Make no mistake, that's the priority. Senior folks, it's going to be hard, but they'll figure it out. If they haven't figured something out in the last 2 decades, then that's a challenge. So if we look at unemployment and all those negative things, it's disproportionately on the young at-risk soldiers. So that's really our main effort. So, so I say I stumbled into it. I went through the normal application process, which was I jokingly say was developed and last improved in about 1956. But somehow I made it through, and here I am, and very blessed and fortunate to have been able to help some soldiers. I hope.
Yeah. And I, s- I would hope this is your only focus, right? You don't have to worry about training. You don't have to worry about
No,
anything. You are transition and
I'm the
transition only, and that's your
Yeah, I'm
focus.
the tap. I'm the tap guy for the Army. We've got about 700 people on the payroll, scattered all over the world. Any fort you can imagine's got a little tap center, at least in most cases. So we in this office here, we focus on the policy, on the data collection, on the resource uh, getting and allocating, pretty much the whole thing. Kind of a you know battalion brigade level headquarters with your troops dispersed in a bunch of little fire bases all over the country.
Oh, 700 people. Yeah. God, the military is huge, isn't it? Oh my God. It's so.
Yeah, there's a million people in the Army. That's a lot
I
of
talked
people.
to a guy. I talked to a guy, Australian Special Forces, last night, and he's like, "Yeah, we got about 55,000 in the total force." I went, like, so that means special operations got to be like 1,000, 1,500. He goes, "Yeah, probably something around that." I
Yeah.
go,
So
man,
yeah,
that is a small community. Who
yeah,
everybody
Fort
knows
Bragg's got more
everybody
than that.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I said Fort Hood's got 55,000 plus, and that's just one base. And he goes, "Yeah, it's just how it is." But most of Australia is, wasteland. So,
sure.
but man,
All
the
good.
military is huge. Um, last one on that stuff. Like, are you ever in awe of stuff you see with this? Do you still get surprised, or is it a constant evolution and of what's going on and the challenges that you're facing with this program?
That's a great question. I will say that the program, just like life, just like the Army, just like you and me personally, is in constant evolution. I'm pretty happy that we get to kind of identify the next 300-meter target. And I'll tell you, our next 300-meter target is a more fine tuned assessment so that you personally get exactly what you need. And I personally get exactly what I need, which may or may not be the same thing you need. We're not there yet. Again, that's the 300-meter target. I tell you what always impresses me, and this sounds kind of corny, but when soldiers spend the time to sit down and talk to a counselor and just talk about what do you want to do? How do you see yourself? What does perfect look like for you? What's victory look like? Just like we do in the Army, define success. Well, the success is, me and my wife sitting at home on the front porch back home, white picket fence, with me working at the Ford plant. Okay, all right. So what are the milestones to get from today to that? How do we make that happen? And that conversation, given enough time, good things happen, and that always amazes me. Uh, it, it, it More time is never bad. Again, just like PT, doing more push-ups a year before your PT test, not going to hurt, just going to help.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm headed to the YMCA right now to swim. What day is it? It's Tuesday, so we've got 1,000 meter swim, and then we're gonna run sprints until we collapse.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you said you were dived. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up here, and I'm gonna save my file. I would love to have you on and hear your story, your service. That was about as good as interesting as I can make transition assistance. And I think it's cool because you know, my audience, I'm getting bigger sections of audience all the time. And there's younger guys that are just starting out 18 X-rays that are listening. And if they get something bug in their head and they're like, yeah, I need to be thinking about that. Now they go do a full career and maybe they'll work on it. A few guys, something. So as much as I don't think I am, or you don't think you are, like you're still influencing the next generation of guys with what you do and what you say and things. And this will be made into clips. And you don't know who's going to make it. Hear those and things like that. So every little bit helps. But I'd love to have you back on and go over your story because, I mean, 175 down in South America and then 310 and then the siege of Soda right there at the beginning of the war, kind of how that went off. So I'd love to have you back on
Yeah,
and have a little bit longer talk with you.
love to. I can talk. I mean, I love tap. I'm honored to do it. My first passion, soldiers, and I knew at age 5 I wanted to, do the soldier thing. I don't know if I said I'm a sixth generation American warrior. So it was pretty ingrained in my little brain.
Absolutely. All right, brother. Well, we'll get you on the schedule for another one. Hopefully we get some
Okay.
people some information, and I appreciate you coming out. You got anything for me?
No, I appreciate it, Nick. This is good stuff. I apologize for the mix up early, but we got plugged in. Um, so you're going to take this and kind of edit it into little sections. Is that your plan?
So I'll cut this part out. This will be really here. I'll take us off. Let me say bye, everybody, and then I'll take us off here.
Okay.
So,
Thank you all
sir,
very much. Happy to be here.
I appreciate you coming on, sir. Bye, everybody.